Hello, I'm Wade Thomason, and it's my privilege to speak to you today about using the data that we collect in the Virginia Tech small grain variety testing program that we compile and distribute every year in a publication that we title Small Grains in whatever year. So this year, Small Grains in 2020 will summarize the results of the statewide official variety testing program for both wheat and barley. Today, I want to talk about the summary of the tests that we do in the state of Virginia. But first, I want to tell you that we have these tests at 7 locations in the state of Virginia for wheat. That's Blacksburg in Southwest Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley, Northern Piedmont near Orange, Southern Piedmont near Blackstone, Tidewater AREC near Suffolk, Eastern Virginia AREC near Warsaw, and of course, at the Eastern Shore AREC there near Painter, Virginia. So each of those 7 locations. We record a significant amount of agronomic and performance data on each of these entries. This year, about 130 distinct entries in 2020, and report on that every year as soon as we can. The easiest way to find the publication would be to go to whatever search engine you use and type in Virginia Tech Small Grains in 2020, and it should take you to the Virginia Cooperative Extension publication page where you'll be able to download those files in PDF format. What I'd like to do today, though, is to give you some tools and tips and tricks on how to use the data that we've collected. So the first thing I want to tell you is that under each column you'll see a number in parentheses. Well, that is the number of varieties that are the number of entries that are averaged. So in this particular case, we have grain yield reported on 17 locations. Now, I said we would have normally had 7 locations in each of 3 years, but due to various factors, weather, freeze damage, sometimes wildlife damage, flooding in one case, we have lost some of these trials. We've chosen not to include them in the average. But that number tells you the number of observations we have for that. So for these yield entries, basically we've quote unquote run the race 17 times. So we're very confident in the performance that we've measured. I also want to say that we certainly recommend you use 3-year or 2-year average performance rather than single-year data, just because we have been able to run that race that many more times. As far as a code, we indicate those that are significantly above the average of the test based on the LSD with a plus sign following the value. Those that are significantly below the test would have a minus sign. For grain yield and test weight, it's obvious that the positive and negative are exactly that. It's higher yield or lower yield, higher test weight or lower test weight. When you talk about the heading dates, that's relative. Some are later, some are earlier. And then some of these other factors are also sort of benign in terms of what they are. They're just descriptive. But leaf rust, powdery mildew, barley yellow dwarf virus, septoria, and FHB index all represent disease levels, and so the lower those are, the better they are. So for most of the columns on the left-hand side, the plus signs are a good thing. For those on the right-hand side associated with disease, the minus sign is a good thing. That means less disease than the average. And each one of these are rated on a 0 to 9 scale. We don't put fungicides on these trials, so these represent the genetic level of resistance. It's important to understand these as we think through our scouting plan and trying to understand how we will help specific varieties overcome weaknesses. So if, for example, we might look at some of these lines in the top of the test that had very high yields, but they also had significant leaf rust. Well, those are probably varieties that would benefit from a fungicide application at flag leaf to protect that leaf from leaf rust. So that's just one way in which we might manage that. The same would be true with these other diseases as well. Finally, I want to talk about the Fusarium head blight or head scab index. This is a composite of 2 terms, the Fusarium head blight incidence and severity. So it's the number of kernels infected on the head, the number of individual infections, and the degree of the head, so the percentage of the head that's infected. Obviously, lower numbers are better, but it is a combination of those two. Also, the last few tables in the publication are very specific and summarize a lot of Fusarium head blight data including the deoxynivalenol or vomitoxin levels and the scores that we've measured from these plots over time. So a lot more information about this, which is probably the most damaging disease, at least as far as marketability in the state of Virginia. So we spend a significant amount of time with that. It's summarized here in this table, but it's also at the end of the publication in much greater. The one thing that's in the single year data that's not in the multi-year data is a column for awns. A stands for awned, so fully bearded wheat. AL is awnless or unleaded, and TA is tip-on, so that would just have awns on the very top end of the head. This can be important depending on what you're going to do, what the end use is, but for the most part, most of us that are asking this question are asking for awned varieties to help reduce wildlife depredation, particularly deer. So this is a piece of information we add in to provide some additional data on that. So with that, I'm going to close. I'm going to tell you again that these data are available in Small Grains in 2020. The publication on the left represents that. I'd also tell you that we've been putting together, beginning last year, publication for specialty small grains. So those would be bread type wheats or hard wheats, and malting barley. So we're summarizing our research and variety testing in those areas too for those producers that are interested in a niche market. Further information, see your county extension agent, faculty and staff at AREC, or my email is included on this slide. Thank you. Have a great day.